Hello there and welcome to today's webcast, How King County Took a Hybrid Cloud Approach to Modernization. I'm Phil Bertolini, I'm the co-director of the Center for Digital Government, and I'm excited to serve as your host for today's webcast. Thank you for joining us. We're going to have a great session over the next hour. Now, before we begin, I have a couple of brief housekeeping notes for you. A recording of this presentation will be emailed to all registrants within 48 hours. You can use the recording for your reference, or feel free to pass along to your colleagues. This webcast is designed to be interactive, and you can participate in Q&A with us by asking questions at any time during the presentation. You should see a Q&A box at the bottom left of the presentation panel. Please send in your questions as they come up throughout the presentation. Now, our speakers will address as many of these questions as we can during the Q&A portion at the close of our webinar today. Now, if you would like to download a PDF of the slides for this presentation, you can do so by clicking the Webinar Resources widget at the bottom of the console. Also, today's webinar, you'll be able to connect with your peers via LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Please use hashtag GovTechLive to connect with your peers across the government technology platform via Twitter. Now, at the close of the webinar, we encourage you to complete a brief survey about the presentation. We'd like to hear what you think. If you are unable to stay with us for the entire webinar, but would like to complete the survey as much as you're able, please click the survey widget at the bottom of the screen to launch the survey. Otherwise, it will pop up once the webinar concludes. Now, at this time, we do recommend that you disable your pop-up blockers, and if you are experiencing any media player issues or have any other problems, please visit our webcast help guide by clicking on the Help button at the bottom of the console. Now, joining me today to discuss this topic are Carmel Call, Director of the Business Resource Center at King County, Washington, and David Knox, Group Vice President and CTO of the Public Sector at Oracle. With 2.2 million residents in 39 cities and unincorporated areas, King County is the nation's 13th largest county with a biennial budget of $12.6 billion. It also has one of the most diverse populations in the United States. Carmel is the director of the Business Resource Center at King County, Washington. Her team manages the ERP systems that support the county's financials, procurement, HR benefits, and payroll operations for approximately 45 lines of business. Carmel is a seasoned IT project and program manager and has worked in both public and private sectors in the US, Canada, and the UK. She has served King County for nearly 12 years, starting as a senior project manager to implement PeopleSoft enterprise-wide and moving into progressively senior positions. Previously, she served as the senior IT project manager for Weyerhaeuser Corp, managing high-risk, large-scale enterprise-wide IT projects. Her IT career started in the UK, managing commercial systems development for International Business Systems, a business partner of IBM. Welcome, Carmel. David is a world-renowned technologist with patents and multiple book publications with a specialty in computer security, data management, and data analytics. David is considered a top innovator in leadership, critical thinking, and organizational execution. He has worked in R&D, advanced technology labs, and run worldwide organizations. David has spent over 20 years at Oracle Corporation. In that tenure, he was VP of National Security Solutions, built and ran Oracle's first solution engineering organization, was the senior technical director of the Oracle Protected Enterprise and Security business, and was chief engineer for Oracle's pioneering Information Assurance Center. So welcome to you both. Now, what I want to do is just go over briefly the agenda we have. We're going to do welcome and introductions, kind of what we're doing now. I'm going to set the stage a little bit here, and then we're going to join Carmel for she's going to give a great presentation on the King County journey to the cloud. And then David is going to give a presentation on the future of the hybrid cloud. And then we're going to have a fun panel discussion amongst the three of us where we're going to go deeper into the topics, and then we'll do live Q&A. So I can't stress enough that we want to make sure that you're putting your questions in during the presentation so that we can answer those at the end. And then we will wrap up after that. So let's get started. The journey to the cloud is a game changer for so many governments, especially after the crazy year of 2020. Governments of all sizes struggle with their technical debt and must modernize to move forward. How will they do that? What are the decisions that must be made for their planning to be effective? Is the cloud a solution they can build on? These are all important questions for the future. Another aspect of this discussion is that the hybrid cloud terminology has become the rage. The big question is, what is the hybrid cloud? Hybrid as a term is used in many different ways. We define hybrid cloud as environments that have some systems in the cloud, some on-premise, some systems comprise several clouds from multiple cloud service providers, and some applications are composed of components like databases and applications strategically scattered. Now, the hybrid definition includes environments that employ two or more of these scenarios. We'll use this definition as the foundation for our discussion today. Today's session will also focus on the reality of what it takes to modernize a major county's technologies with the cloud as a central focal point. Leaders in King County, Washington made all the tough decisions and answered all the right questions. The journey was not an easy one, but was successful for all the right reasons. We will hear firsthand what it took to work with leadership, convince the technical teams, and implement a strong solution to so many problems. So we're getting ready to go into our webinar now, but the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and do a poll question. So describe your IT environment. Is it on-premises only, on-premises and cloud application or SaaS, on-premises cloud application SaaS, and cloud infrastructure IaaS, or infrastructure as a service, or is it 100% in the cloud? I'm going to give you a few seconds to go ahead and answer this question because we think it's important to lay the foundation where everybody's at. And our panelists today are going to talk about some very intricate aspects of what it really takes to do this right. And one of the reasons and one of the aspects of doing it right is making sure you know what you have. So we're going to go ahead and give you a few more seconds here to answer this question. We'd love to see more answers. So let's bring them in because the more answers, the better the data. And we're going to go ahead and conclude our poll. Panelists, you can see that there's quite a mixture of what's going on out there. You have some cloud applications, you have cloud applications and cloud infrastructure, but you do have some people that are on-premise only, but that doesn't mean they're not going to look to the cloud. But there's a great opportunity here for those that are trying to leverage everything or most everything into the cloud. Thank you all for sharing those results. I appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get our speakers started. Our first speaker is Carmel. Carmel, it is all yours.
Thanks, Phil, and thanks for the great introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. It's also been really interesting for me personally just to reflect back on our journey and how we got started, navigating both the cloud and looking at all the accomplishments the team's made thus far. And when you're in the middle of a journey and it's still going, it's really, it's easy to forget what's in your rear view mirror. So really appreciate also the opportunity for me to just reflect back as well. Couple of things before we dive into that journey. I wanted to add a couple more factoids about King County. We have 16,000 employees and about 45 lines of business that spans everything from transportation to criminal justice, public health, elections, and our executive, Dow Constantine, has an objective to be the best run government in the nation. And last year, during the pandemic, the county actually earned a AAA bond rating from all three major bond rating agencies. And that was the impetus. We launched an investors page following that. So just some other facts. And the Business Resource Center, we support both the applications and infrastructure for the ERP systems. So we are truly an Oracle shop, and we're separate from the core IT organization for the county. Our governance structure comprises members of the county senior leadership team, so keeping them engaged and in the loop and educated about the choices and the business value and business case for cloud migration has been key for obtaining their support for both the technology and cloud investment decisions. So that's been critical in our journey the last 5 years. And really, cloud's options and solutions really gave us a lot to think about, not just how we get started, but how do we invest in the future and deliver value, balance the risk? How do we adopt a cloud approach? Lots of questions, lots of unknowns, and lots to learn and evaluate. And I would say that our cloud journey at King County has really been driven by a series of choices and decisions related to application upgrades, infrastructure replacement of legacy systems, and implementation of new services. We're about 5 years into it, but obviously still a long way to go. One of the most important things for us was also workforce planning, and critical to keeping our current staff engaged and excited. We had a very high engagement factor. Our last employee engagement, I think we were at 86, 87%. So we have a highly engaged team, and we wanted to bring the team along with us along this cloud journey. Seattle is a highly competitive job market, and so we have to work hard to attract and retain talent. And building a healthy organization is an umbrella for investing in training, in development, in building team cohesion, and also building soft skills and we think of it as a leadership mindset. So creating those opportunities for growth and development for our existing staff has also been a really important factor in our journey, because we're not just investing in the new technologies and systems, it's also about investment in our existing people so that they grow with us and are not left behind. And then we're not left losing that talent and having to find replacement. So what I'm going to share with you is stories. Every year we have made some investment in our journey and how that helped shape and helped us navigate the cloud adoption of cloud technologies. One of the first early decisions was back in 2016, and I don't think we realized the significance of it, but at that time we were faced with significant performance issues with our on-prem commodity hardware for EBS, and we were also, it was due for replacement, but we were struggling every year with performance issues, and the customer experience wasn't very good. The reliability of the system, availability was poor. And at the same time, we were investing in a new service, BI and analytics. And so we explored the use of Exadata. And the reason for doing that was we were interested in how will Oracle hardware work and best support Oracle applications. And our desire to consolidate the EBS servers, improve the system performance, deliver a better user experience was really important. It provided a deeper understanding for our technical teams to get that experience of Oracle hardware for Oracle applications, rather than just firefighting performance and security issues. The following year, 2017, we were faced with an upgrade choice for Hyperion, whether to, as well as replacing that infrastructure. And choices were upgrade as is and replace with commodity hardware, move to a managed services provider, or migrate to the Oracle Cloud SaaS solution, planning, budgeting, and cloud services. And we made the decision based on total cost of ownership that moving that application to Oracle PBCS was really low risk, and the staff were able to be part of that implementation and learn what it would take to support, manage going forward. So again, investing in staff was really important in the learning and knowledge transition. Fast forward 2018, 2020, again, we were looking ahead and looking at infrastructure replacement for PeopleSoft. And with all the hype about cloud infrastructure, we were really interested in whether that cloud infrastructure gave us an opportunity to have a robust disaster recovery solution for PeopleSoft. And the reason for that, our payroll every 2 weeks, it's worth 52 million. So the continuity of that payroll is vital for both the local economy and for our communities. And that was one of the things that kept me up at night. Our existing disaster recovery solution was far from proven, less than ideal, and certainly not robust. That caused us to embark on a proof of concept with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, partnering with Oracle along the way, and using our existing staff to partner and actually do the work and build the DR environment out alongside Oracle staff as well. We all got to learn through the partnership. We all got to learn back in at that time about Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and fast forwarding, we extended that to our non-production environment, and this year we're undertaking a large project to move our PeopleSoft production to OCI. Again, the proof of concept and moving the non-dev environment or non-production environments to the infrastructure has given the team lots of opportunity to understand what's involved, what it takes, what are the decisions that need to be made. And it's being done on our own timeline, as well as being ready with a solution to replace the aging infrastructure. Our go-live date is 2021. Last year, we replaced our legacy supplier registration, sourcing, and contracting apps with Oracle Cloud Services. So that was another decision. We were on a burning platform. The applications didn't work for the business. We had a 70% failure rate for supplier registration, and so needed a solution that would bring the county into the modern age of interacting with our suppliers and vendors, as well as giving us visibility to greater visibility to contracting and sourcing. I'm happy to say that project was completed last year. It was completed remotely, and again, our existing staff were part of the project team, completing the implementation, learning how to integrate a cloud app with existing EBS, learning the new configurations. And so the knowledge transfer for that was part of the knowledge transfer, and actually doing the work was part of their experience in that implementation. Our recent stats show an 89% success rate in supplier registration, and that's just climbing as the application is used more. I would say those are some of the key kind of highlights, decisions that we went through. Some of the challenges, and I would say not a challenge, but just recognizing that integration of cloud apps with on-prem is maybe new, and allowing the time for design and testing and iterations of that was important. Integrating supplier data with on-prem BI and analytics data is a challenge that we're currently working through. And when you're hybrid, it's not just the apps and integrations that you need to think about and work through, but it's also the other underlying network and security infrastructure that goes with it. And currently, a challenge on the move to OCI is the Active Directory verification and the architecture for that. Because again, there are a number of different sort of options to accomplish that. And I would say that is one, again, thinking about that as we're working through it. I don't know if anybody else has come up, has experienced that. An incremental approach, it isn't done overnight. It really is a long game. And going forward for the county, the pandemic certainly has slowed our ability to make new investments. And so we're pivoting our focus to really, we're not stopping our journey, but looking at how we leverage what we currently own and get ourselves prepared for the next steps along in our journey. And so whether that is improving our business and system processes, looking at data integrity and data cleanup, but getting ourselves ready for what we see as a future SaaS migration for the rest of EBS and BI as well. And I would just add that making the time for staff to learn and grow with and along the journey is vitally important. That growing their skill sets, investing in your existing staff, that has just paid off in spades in terms of employee engagement, interest, and just their willingness to learn more. And so not only we're not being left behind, but neither are the staff as well. So on that, I hope I gave people a flavor of some of the highlights, and I'll hand back to Phil.
Carmel, thank you for that. That was incredible. Great story. Amazing how you looked at technology, looked at people. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about that when we get into our panel. So thank you, Carmel. Now it is time to turn everything over to David. David, it's all yours.
Hi, thanks, Phil. Thanks, Carmel, as well. I really appreciate the time today. I want to talk about a couple of things here. The first is the future of hybrid cloud, and really the future of hybrid cloud is the future of cloud. And there's three elements to that I really, we're really observing these things. And then I'm going to talk real quick. I'll give kind of my notes on what I heard from Carmel, sort of the 5 highlights that we see repeatedly from our customers that are very successful on their journey. So first, let's talk about the hybrid cloud. What are the 3 things that we see kind of in the future and where we're going with this? The first is very fast, much faster time from idea and conception until operation. And it makes sense in many ways that we can say, I need a server to try out this new algorithm. I want to try and invest in something, and it's just there. You just turn it on and you feed it data and you run your thing. And if it works, it works. And then you can figure out how to do it. But the speed is going to be really orders of magnitude improvements in what we're able to do in regards to relying on our IT systems to help drive our operations. A tangent to that, but actually a second part to that is agility. And agility means being able to pick up and adopt new parts of operations and missions. We saw a lot of that with COVID, where state and local governments in particular were asked to do new things, vaccination scheduling, vaccination tracking, and so forth, and that wasn't in their budget. And being able to do those things leveraging a cloud infrastructure to be able to pick those things up and turn them on very quickly, that agility to change in mission, adapt and augment a mission is really phenomenal. We're going to see more of that. And then the third area, which I think a lot of people are really happy to hear about, is the reliability and the predictability of costs and cost controls. And what you see with cloud is that people, just because of the billing of how cloud operates, we can see the fidelity of is really what I'm speaking to. It allows us to really go in and understand if I'm going to do something and I can size it pretty well, I know what my costs are going to be. And the more I use it, the more reliable those cost predictions become. And we can also do things like put cost containment measures in place as well, so we don't have cost overruns. So we'll be able to move quickly, we'll be able to be more agile, and we'll be able to control our costs. So it's, other than that, no, it's a really great thing. So 5 quick notes, highlight notes that I took away from Carmel's story. It's just a wonderful story. It's just brilliant. She's a brilliant technologist and business person. And the first that I see is choosing the low-cost, high-value approach to the first thing into the cloud. She spoke of disaster recovery and the dev test environments, another good example. And the idea is she's adding value to an existing operational environment, and she's doing it very cost effectively. And this is it's a very pragmatic way to start into the cloud. It's not, I'm just going to scribble something like a hello world just to see if I can do it, but is how can I improve what I already have, but I need to start going to the cloud. So a very practical and sensible way is to start with that thing in the cloud and tie it back to my on-premises solution. So I love that. The second thing that we start to, another part to this, and this is the big part, which is rationalizing the IT that you already have. What I mean by that is cloud offers for many an opportunity to restart and reset what they've done in their IT systems over the years. Many cases, these things have evolved over years. They've taken a life of their own. And what you see today is really the product of a lot of decisions done over many years for a lot of really good reasons, but it can be kind of a little bit of a mess. And the smart thing and what people are realizing is they don't really want to move the mess to the cloud, because then you have exactly what I just said. You have a mess in the cloud. So taking the time to think about that, and we're thinking about the consolidation, thinking about the modernization of systems, this is a great time to do it. The other part that Carmel spoke of, which is non-trivial, but it's a great time to reset, talks about the security. And this really talks about, you know, your personas, your groupings, your privileges and accesses to systems. Again, those things that have kind of grown up over time often get a little unwieldy. And this is a perfect time to sit down and really formalize and say, this is how it really makes sense for us to control who gets access to what, when, and how. And then the part that I referred to a moment ago about the cost, this is really, that gives a lot of people capabilities that they didn't have. If putting the billing across different cost centers is important and controlling what that is, the cloud has that. It has to have that for the nature of what it is. And this is a huge relief, I know, for many that I speak with who oftentimes have this constant struggle of IT budget and how is it funded and how much does it get funded and where is it going and where are the loose ends. So this is a very good thing for us. The third thing, and this really is talking about how do you proceed with this. It's not really just how you start, but it's choosing something of significance at first that is a good representation of really what you envision for your overall cloud experience. What I mean by that is thinking about the application profile, the size, the complexity, the pieces, the parts, the integration with other applications. It's going to be a journey in there, and you should treat it as such, not as what we're seeing is if you just say, well, I got to get out of the data center, I've got to shut this thing down, the hardware is going old, I need to do something, and everything's just a one-off action, you're missing out on a real opportunity. So you choose wisely, and then your approach is based on when I can do this, that sets me up to do the next thing, that sets me up to do that thing. And keep in mind that it's a learning experience as you go. So there's going to be known unknowns when you start, and that's okay. But you just factor that into the process, and you put it in the plan, and you execute on it, and then you make your way. The fourth thing on there is what we're seeing once you're in the cloud. What we see are people that it's not just, oh, we had what we had here and we moved it in and we're good. It opens up a new opportunity to start thinking cloud and more cloud. I noticed on the survey, most of the people have on-premise and SaaS applications, and that's great because what we see is those SaaS take root in the cloud, and then they expand other services, other value-added capabilities that you can extend and augment what it is that you're doing. So that journey is really, how do I start to take advantage of things that are in the cloud inherently? I mean, we talked about some of the sort of the managerial aspects, but there's other operational aspects. For example, artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms that are out there. There's a lot of them. How do I integrate that? Do I need to buy a special system for it? Perhaps they run on GPUs. I don't have any GPUs. I'm not even sure what a GPU is. Well, the cloud has them, and they're optimized to run those algorithms. And when you're looking for ways to improve and increase what it is you're doing, it's going to be there. So linking those together in the cloud. And the fifth thing that we're really seeing, and I think this is going to shape the clouds of the future, some call it the fit-for-purpose clouds. And I would agree with that. Just as Carmel talked about the engineered systems and why she was looking at buying fit-for-purpose hardware and software to do a specific workload, clouds are really engineered to do the same kind of things. Your back office ERP systems, big data-driven servers, data-driven enterprises with big integrations. The profiles of those fit better in certain clouds that are sort of optimized. Those are the workloads that the creators were thinking of supporting when they designed those clouds. So these fit, and by the way, those are going to be very different from the ones that run your emailing system or your document management systems, and perhaps even like your little research projects. So, but it does make sense that we will find ourselves where we have multiple clouds running in a fit for purpose, optimized for workloads. We may even still have on-premise, and we'll have the dynamics of being able to decide what goes where very intelligently. So I really appreciate the time. Those are some of my initial thoughts for this. Phil, thanks for that. Back over to you.
David, thank you very much. And you know, the tie-in between what Carmel talked about and what you talked about is so important for governments across the nation to hear. So well done. Well, it's time for our panel discussion. So welcome back in, panel. And what I'd like to do is, Carmel, I'd like to start with you because there are so many driving factors that really move these types of programs forward. Did your leadership agree with the decision immediately, or did it take some convincing to go where you wanted to go?
I think what we focused on was really business case and value. So, for example, doing a proof of concept for PeopleSoft in the cloud, it was relatively low seed money, and given if you think about a $52 million payroll every 2 weeks, our seed money to do the cloud, I'm going to say, was about $80,000. So it's a no-brainer when you start to, what I talked about earlier, part of that education, keeping them in the loop, showing the value and the objective that you want to get to, and understanding the benefit that's going to be delivered. It's not that they took convincing, it's really developing the business case and showing the value that you're going to deliver, and then delivering on that value. And so we have a good track record of delivering on value. But it's the investment also in the education.
Carmel, that's so interesting because as you get wins, obviously it's easier to get some of those decisions supported, right? So managing expectations and getting wins. Well said.
Yeah.
So David, I want to bring you in on that question, but I want to spin it a little different if I could. So nationwide, you work with governments all across the country. Are government leaders from the elected positions or the business positions, are they supporting IT in this move to the cloud?
Absolutely, they are. And I believe it's because they do hear these stories of success, not just in getting there, but more often than not, the stories are even better than the ones they heard. Their experience is even better. And as far as improvements in costs, improvements in performance, added capabilities, it's not till something really bad happens that you realize, our disaster recovery scenario didn't work so well. And the reason was because we didn't have a disaster recovery plan. We didn't have the budget to do it. And it was, by the way, those things are very complex. In the cloud world, it's practically trivial, and to some extent, compared to what it used to be. And so when they hear these stories, people are really, they kind of accelerate what they want to do, almost to the point that we have to slow them down a little bit. And for example, in the federal government, it was go all 100% to the cloud. Like cloud first, all the cloud. And now it's cloud smart, meaning that hold on, wait a second. Let's think about this carefully, because it is smart, but it's not necessarily just jettison everything you have and move lock, stock, and barrel into the cloud.
And let's be fair, we all understand from, my former life as a CIO and what I saw too, not everything's going to go. I mean, there's some strategic things that can go, and you can get things to go over time and then eventually get to whatever your goal is. But Carmel, how did you make those decisions? So how did you know what to move to the cloud, and how did you leverage your existing investment in your infrastructure to help you get there?
I think, as I mentioned, I talked about faced with different decisions around infrastructure upgrade, application upgrade, or implementation of a new service. And so as over the last few years, as cloud choices have evolved, particularly on the infrastructure side and other areas where we don't have a service. So it was really, does this, again, I would say, evaluating options. Do we stay the course and do what we've always done, or is there a new opportunity? And it's really, I look at it as solution evaluation 101. What is it that I'm trying to do? What are the alternate options that are out there? What are the choices that are out there? How much is that going to cost? What's the return what's my ROI? What's my total cost of ownership? And what's, at the end of the day, what's the value that is going to be delivered? So that value could be in cost reduction, more streamlined processes, or cost avoidance. So, for example, for supplier sourcing and contracting, we didn't have to invest in infrastructure. Moving to we didn't have that service available. And so thinking of, can we do a cloud first approach for that was really foremost in our minds. And again, looking at those options and solutions that are available to you, really really kind of doing that evaluation. And it's, it's just digging deep and getting that evaluation done. But we also looking, again, through education and conversations with our senior leadership team about moving to cloud, how to do that in a control, not necessarily, perhaps controlled is the word, but in a managing the risk. So yes, there's risk, but how well can we manage the risk of doing that, as well as being future focused? And so keeping that weather eye out for preserving our investment in the Oracle systems, but keeping the weather eye out for what's coming down. How do we take advantage of that? And it developing the business case for it. I mean, that's the first, for us, that's kind of one of the first things of where we started. Identifying what it is that would be of value for the county, why it was important, and the business case for it and cost of ownership compared with doing nothing or carrying on with doing the same thing.
It's amazing too how that in recent times the risk, the ability to accept risk has changed as well for CIOs, because you have to move fast and you have to do things, important things right now. So risk is more acceptable today. David, I want to bring you, if I could too, based on what Carmel talked about as far as, the whole leveraging the existing investment. But I also would like you to kind of walk the road of this whole issue of hybrid cloud and multi-cloud, and how does that fit into a plan like what Carmel has?
Well, leveraging the existing investment, I think, is one of those things. We talk about risk. There's several different dimensions, of course, with that. We think about sort of instinctively, I might think about sort of the stability of the system itself and the accessibility and availability of a system that I used to sort of be able to see and know where it was. And now it's in the cloud, which is this, of course, metaphor for you don't know where it is by design. But leveraging existing investments is also, and the risk is I want to continue to operate the way that my users are used to operating. Moving to the cloud needs to minimize disruption to the business. And people and the processes that are in place that people have learned and fine-tuned and optimized over the years, that means that's leveraging those existing investments. That's really what I think about. It's not like, well, I have an investment in hardware, I need to preserve that investment in hardware. It's like, no. It's the training, it's the usability, it's the efficiency that comes with a workforce that really understands what that is and how it's supposed to operate. The second part to your question on multi-clouds and hybrid clouds and on-premise, I think about this the way really the world has evolved, and it is that there really is no single vendor out there that owns everything of everything. There are some big ones like Oracle and Microsoft and so forth, but people, when they want to do a Word document, they tend to use PowerPoint and now Office 365. And if they want to do the ERP backend systems, they're going to go to an Oracle because that's what Oracle's known for doing, and Oracle's version of SaaS in the clouds. And I believe this is going to continue to be what we're going to see going forward, because for the same logic that we had before. Fit for purpose, it's cost optimized, it's performance optimized, it's the least disruption. These providers are optimizing around what it is that their services are supposed to deliver. They're going to deliver the best service in very targeted areas. And so everybody can benefit from carefully selecting it. And what we're seeing as well is there is a lot of ease. I'll say there's some level of ease and interoperability between what these different cloud providers have and how they can interact and work with each other. So there's sort of almost de facto standards and expectations around security, connectivity, administrations, and so forth.
David, thank you. And before we go into our live Q&A, so everybody out there, get your questions ready. But Carmel, you did some unique things with your team to move this forward, to create significant buy-in. And you did that in conjunction with your partners. Can you talk about, in the next minute or so, could you talk about what you did with your team and then how your partners helped you do that?
So I think unique with the team was having them actively engaged in those projects, doing the work. So when we talked about Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, we did that actually without a partner, without an SI, but by what the team members working directly with Oracle on the proof of concept. And how we did that, we have in our planning, in our work planning, we made the time for those employees to work directly and be dedicated to that project. So it's part of our work plan. Also, where needed, we would backfill. If we had a key resource that's dedicated, we actually do backfill them so that we have a contractor or temporary employee who comes in and does the day-to-day work, freeing the staff member to participate and be active on doing the work and participating in a project. And the other is setting aside helping employees, being supportive for employees to do the training, the OCI certification and other training, to have dedicated time to do that, and encouraging staff members to actually work together as they were learning about OCI and going through the certification. But where we have SIs, one of the things that we do in the statement of work is actually to set expectations about partnership, knowledge transfer, and inclusion. And when, if we don't see that, we address that early rather than let it slide, because part of the contract with them, it's not just coming in and doing something to us. It's actually setting expectations for partnership and collaboration. And so that relationship is also managed. So we get what we need, and the staff working alongside an SI also feels like that being included and they're part of, and that they're learning the work.
Carmel, thanks for sharing that. We are now out of time for our panel, but it's live Q&A time. And we have a number of questions in our question module here, so I'm going to go ahead and ask some of those. So let's go ahead and get the first one here. What platforms or tools were most effective for the orchestration, provisioning, and automation? And what were the challenges in these processes? Carmel, do you want to start there?
I don't know if I'm the best person. So the platforms, I'm not sure what the... So platforms, I'm not really sure what the question is getting to. I mean, we have moved on cloud, we've moved to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, not Classic, so OCI. The other Oracle Cloud tool that is really helping us is the MFT for cloud services, managed file transfer. And so staff have been learning that. Using, I guess, transparent data encryption, we've applied that to our on-prem applications, but I don't know if I'm answering the person's question.
Well, I think you are. I think you are, Carmel, because they were just kind of wondering what tools were being used there. But let me go ahead and shift a little bit here too, because I want to go towards staff if I could. And David, I'd really like you to take this one on at first, and Carmel, please weigh in as well. How did you get staff that were on-prem and doing everything to shift to adopt the cloud? And how did you approach the upskilling and cloud learnings for the on-prem staff? And David, if you could give the macro perspective on what you're seeing out there and how people are doing it. And then Carmel, if you could share how you did it internally.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. What we are seeing is it's a little bit of a shift in the folks that were running the internal, let's say the data center folks. that are very key and critical. These are the folks that are, of course, experts in designing networks and placing servers and positioning workloads in different parts, and where do I put these things, and how do I create fault isolations. And those are the folks that now it's they're taking that level of expertise now and applying it into cloud. And it's almost one-to-one. It's very easy now because they're actually not running cables back and forth. It's software as an infrastructure as software. So they just kind of go in and they have a schematic and they look at it and they can go and provision, and they're just clicking buttons now. And they can almost get giddy. That's the faster and agile part of doing this, is that laying down that infrastructure. And by the way, you can change your mind like that and just blow it all away and start out. It's like shaking an Etch-a-Sketch, like, oh, I didn't like that one, let me try it again. And like twice in the same day even is not a problem. You would never do that before. So they laid that down, and those skills translate perfectly. And then the people that run the systems, that are comfortable with the administration, the functionality, that's what we were talking about earlier. So the PeopleSoft administrators, hey, it's PeopleSoft in the cloud. It's the same thing now. Maybe the URL is a little different, but I'm looking at exactly the same thing, and that's by intent as well. So that skills transfer is a perfect way to do that.
Excellent. Carmel, so internally, and then one thing I'd like you to add, Carmel, if you could, when you talk about it, were they afraid of losing their jobs? When you started shifting to the cloud, were there people that were really concerned that their job would go away?
So I think we started early on, a few years ago, sharing our cloud journey with the staff and saying that this was really opportunity. So kind of that whole change management from the human perspective, that this was really opportunity for, that it's going to be different. It's an opportunity to learn and grow, and because the technology is going to be changing before our very eyes, and just being transparent that technology is not going to stay the same. The business of buying things, paying for things, hiring people, paying people, that the business stays, but the technology that supports all those business processes is actually changing before our eyes. And we're seeing that not just with cloud, but with, when you start to think about artificial intelligence and what does that mean? I don't know yet. You've got some ideas, but it was really around I saw it as preparing staff for the change. And so that also emphasizing and that they would be part of that journey, that we didn't, that part of doing this work is also investing in them. And so, making that commitment and following through, it's that, again, and that whole management and how, in terms of, as a leader leading a critical, albeit small group of people, but a critical group of people, bringing them along on the journey, because it's an opportunity. And I equated it to, look, for the next few years, we're going to be in a learning lab, myself included. So there may have been, there may be some hesitation there, but the commitment to include them, to provide training and development, for them to actually be the people on the project team doing the work or learning directly alongside an SI, and that being empowered to have that control over their own learning. That's been really, it's not just about training. It's also, following through with that reassurance, that transparency, about them also being part of the journey. That don't want, don't want them left behind.
Yeah, definitely. And we have a couple minutes left, and we have time for one more question. And it came in, and it talks about the fact that everybody's working remotely during COVID-19. Do you think this is all going to continue? And if it does digital first or cloud smart or cloud integration, do all those ideas become even more important now than they were before? Carmel, go to you first.
Yeah, I think staff really like working remotely, and so remote working is going to figure in our future. Does it become more urgent? Again, for the county, then there may be things that I think certainly the tools that help the workforce be collaborative and the workforce tools are important. How we can move, continue the pace with our journey. We are budget constrained, so we want to balance that as well. But I think again, we'll start to see a bigger demand for it, but our ability to meet the demand may be budget constrained.
Excellent point. David, you get the last words on that question.
Well, yes, absolutely. Thank you for that opportunity. Continue to work remote. Absolutely. We're going to see that because if we had to do this on our own, it would have taken many, 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 many more years. There's a lot of very conservative, even at Oracle, we're very conservative. We like to see each other. We like to see our customers all the time, all the time, all the time. And I think we're very suspect that we could do our mission. We could do our jobs remotely, and we were forced to do it. And guess what? It works. And not only does it work, but people are kind of happy about not sitting in traffic, I being one of those people. And we get more efficiencies because we can meet with more people, and it's all really, really good. And then you add the cloud. What has cloud provided during this time? I tell you what, it's a good thing this didn't happen maybe 15, 20 years ago, because we wouldn't have come out as well as a functional society in this regard. Cloud, when adopted, where adopted, really was a relief valve for many organizations. We saw in some cases, for example, unemployment claims and unemployment insurance, huge spikes on systems that were never designed to support that. When augmented into the cloud or moved to the cloud, they could handle those kinds of spikes. There's better governance and operational capacity in the cloud because they're done by, and I'm not saying that people on premise aren't cloud professionals, but this is the best of the best, and they're doing it. It's an economy of scale, not just from a cost perspective, but from a subject matter expertise perspective. And so things like disaster recovery and backups and just day-to-day scalability, everything is handled inherently and natively in the cloud. So that facilitates an environment that we find ourselves in today, and I think it'll be a changed world going forward.
David, thank you. All right, ready, lightning round. Carmel, what's your one word you want to leave this audience with about cloud migration for modernization? One word.
Exciting.
Excellent. David.
The one word I would leave with people for modernization is agility.
Excellent.
Think agility.
Thank you both. We're almost out of time, so I want to go ahead and get ready to wrap up our session today. But I want to remind everyone that Oracle has a robust presence on our GovTech site. Make sure you go to govtech.com/Oracle360 to learn how Oracle is bringing innovation to every part of government. Now, if you want to learn more about how you can start your journey to the cloud, make sure you take a look at our masterclass series with Oracle, where you'll get a basic understanding of how to start your cloud migration project. And lastly, watch for more information about the April 15th Oracle State and Local Government Virtual Summit. Along with my colleague Terry Takai, we'll be hosting a lively panel discussion with a group of Oracle customers who successfully made the move to the cloud. Now, again, I want to be respectful of our time commitment, so I have to wrap it up here. I want to really thank Carmel and David. You were both awesome today. Thank you very much. But I would also very much like to thank our sponsor, Oracle, for making it possible to have this important webcast today. You are great partners. Thank you. And then I want to thank our audience for spending time with us. We look forward to seeing you again soon at another government technology event. I want everyone to have a great rest of your day. Thank you.